As we started discussing what it means to serve, I hope you were able to pinpoint some areas in which you can recognize that you are working alongside Jesus, both for the church and for the community. As we continue on this video, I want to open up with a question. Why do you serve? Why do you give your time to a certain ministry, a certain church, or maybe a certain nonprofit? Have you ever really thought about the intentions for why you serve? One of the things I often recognize within myself is what I can get out of serving. That sounds ugly and gross saying that I'm a pastor, but when I get to the very foundation of my humanity, I often serve because it benefits me. Every summer, our church does this church-wide summer camp for our high school and middle school students. It is an incredible camp that actually goes out into the community and serves. They cut grass and they paint, talk with people who are unfortunately shut in their home because of an extenuating circumstance. And that's just a little bit of it. If I'm completely honest though, I was not looking forward to this camp week. The idea of driving around a bunch of middle school and high school students and then having to work, the sweat and the heat in the middle of a Florida summer. As the week went on, my attitude changed. Now, it may seem silly, but to me, God was convicting me. We had gotten to a house where the yard was overgrown. I mean, the grass was shin deep. Thick grass. And as we pulled out the tools, the lawnmowers, the weed eaters, etc., I realized none of the students ever really used any of these items. So I had the opportunity to teach them how to use and operate these tools. It was a moment where I felt as though the Lord was teaching me that no type of serving, whether it was driving around students all week or teaching them how to use a tool, was too menial. That it was all about serving people, specifically for that week, those students. However, serving most of the time, if we are not careful, can become menial or can become about getting something in return, especially if you grow up where serving meant you got volunteer hours. But let's look at what Corey Smealer and Megan Grace state in their book, Generation Z. The prevalence of service opportunities likely explains why nearly 90% of Generation Z students have frequently engaged in community service as high school seniors. However, more than half of these students indicate that their community service work was required as a part of a class. Since they have arrived in college, either their mentality for volunteerism has changed or their opportunity to engage in it has. One study notes that a third believe there was a perfect chance they will participate in community service in college. And another puts that number just over half. But when it comes to actually volunteering versus planning to volunteer, that number drops to 6% for participants in our study. Compare that reality from Generation Z with their counterparts, the millennials. Smealer and Grace continue. Generation Z students' participation in volunteerism differs vastly from that of the millennial students. Where we found that Generation Z students engage in volunteering at a lower rate compared to other engagement activities, the primary form of activism for millennials has been focused primarily on service. One study found that 65% of millennials engaged in service sometime during the 12 months prior to the study and said that they engage in service because it makes them feel like they are helping people. After hearing the differences between the millennial generation and Generation Z, I wonder if we view serving at church or in our community as something we can gain or get out of it. Something we can get because, well, we were taught that we would get something. What would it look like if you started to serve your church or community with the understanding that you're a mission for Jesus instead of something you could get out of that mission? Christianity didn't grow in the first century because of miracles or anything like that. The main reason it grew was through the united and driven efforts of the growing number of followers who invited their friends, relatives, and neighbors to share the good news. The spread of the gospel depends on how it moves from person to person. So, where do I get started, you may be asking? Well, start serving at your church. Whether that is in student ministry or children's ministry, the parking lot, cleaning toilets, or setting up chairs, just start somewhere. Be there early. Be there often. Feel as though this is your offering to God. These are just some of the ways you can get started. As you go through the rest of your day, what are some things you can do right now to serve without an expectation of something in return?